bad.
There are just so many issues in this show. Thank you for coming on to joining us on Westfox today. We are talking about episode 9 of Star Trek Picard, and I have decided to title it it is currently titled a very pretentious name. I believe it's Latin, and I have no desire to even say the name of it, but I decided to call this episode The Foolish Cyber God and the Island of Eloi. And if you are familiar with classic sci-fi, The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, the Eloi were the future human race that were essentially dumbed down cattle to the warlocks who were using them for food source. But what made them so docile was because they were given everything to them and they had no choices to make. And they were just, here's food for you guys. You get to live in kind of a paradise. And then you get eaten. And I have this in this episode, and we'll get farther into it, but this is my opening diatribe. And the way that these androids / synthetics interact with the people around them is very much reminiscent of the original classic movie version of The Time Machine. I believe it was done in the 60s. I could be wrong on that date exactly. It's worth watching. It's actually really good. When I was a child, it was a very scary movie to me. But it was really, I really much liked it.
That actually ruined my sleep for a decade, at least, as a child.
Walking down the hallway in the bathroom, it was, like how there's the one in our old house to the left, there was the one door that just went to the dark bathroom, so it was super dark. Every time ran past that. Sorry, after that movie, it's like, oh, if the warlocks are gonna show up, it's gonna be right from that corner to the bathroom in that dark hallway. Yep,
it's true. So
what I would do is sneak my hand in to turn the light on. So if they took anything, it was just my hand to eat.
That's a horrible. Just pull the rest of you in, Philip.
Right. Anyway. So that's the kind of the premise of that. Is I felt they were very undata-like. In this episode, I was very much expecting the synthetics to behave like a data, and instead they actually behave very much like small children without any intelligence to them, and a small spoiled brat, which we'll get into. But that was my opening little thing. There's a lot to talk about in this episode. It's going to be a long one. We'll try to keep it within an hour or so. We won't push it beyond that, hopefully. If not, we'll keep pushing it, and then we'll save some elements to our full season breakdown, such as story plots that are irrelevant to the story. This episode proves that there's a lot of stuff that happened. This episode proves there's a lot that happened before, and I also need to do some research, and I feel that I need to see if there was any reshoots or major story elements that were leaked ahead of time, or elements that were possibly redone, because this episode has a couple scenes in it that truly feel like they were half edited from something else. And there was elements in it that, since it was only a 45-minute episode compared to some of the more recent episodes that pushed more around the 57-minute mark, this one, including before trailer, after trailer, and everything, was only at 45 minutes. So it was a pretty short episode, especially for one that's the ramp up to the finale. I felt that there was a good chance there was actually 10 minutes of scene missing in this show. And you definitely feel it, because there are scenes that literally start off in the middle of a scene awkwardly. And there's scenes, the way that characters interact, that you're like, oh, that was weird. So that is the beginning. So any opening thoughts from you, Shepard? I'm gonna let you start this one off, because last episode you did not talk as much, so I want to give you a chance to do your opening diatribe here, and then we'll move on to
you. Didn't have anything to say. Let's be honest.
Oh, I had lots to say, but it was a lot of inappropriate words. My biggest thoughts for this episode, my biggest problems, I think, was both the clean slate that it felt like it did of both the story and the characters. Anything that we felt the characters were about was kind of reset, just so you could kind of then go a whole new direction with it, or create just all new character problems. My second problem I had with it, I've already called this out, so I'll say it before. So in prior episodes, I thought that this show was going the level of Mass Effect, and I was right. So I want to go ahead and give a little bit of that. I know that you two spoke about. Yeah, I think there's a pat on the back to go all the way around.
Pat on the back to you. I was calling out Gurren Lagann last episode, which I was half right. There's still definitely elements of it, but when I read the summary, because you brought that up, I read the summary of. I've never played the game, but I read what Mass Effect was about. And I was like, oh, cybernetic race that comes and wipes out organic life. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Yeah, that's nothing new. And then finally, I'd say that a lot. Well, since some of the themes thrown in this episode were both love and then kind of fear, I feel like the writers have no idea what those words actually mean, and then the way that they tried to use them, the two instances that you have, and we'll go through them. But the two times that they try to then use love is just either showing the worst examples of what love in a relationship would be, or the stereotypical just using love as, like, oh, I love you, because it's supposed to bring some kind of emotional connection. And it's like, there's not. Don't cheapen the word. And it was pointless. So when we get to those points, you'll know what we're talking about. But
Totally.
So I think that was the worst things for me. And then just to complete, I mean, man, I know we've already been saying this really isn't Star Trek, but then it got to this episode and it went, this really isn't Star Trek.
Yeah, it's name only. Okay. Southhound, why don't you go ahead and do your opening there?
Well, folks, before you watch this episode, make sure you pull out your favorite adult beverage. This, within the first 3 minutes, was already a painful experience, and they amazingly got worse and worse. So for to have to regurgitate this, I have brought out my Wild Turkey Rare Breed, and this is straight bourbon barrel proof. This batch happens to be clocking in at 117,
and not strong enough for this episode.
It's not strong enough for this episode. I would say for my opening strike, I think you can sum up how stupid this entire thing was by me analogizing it to, guys, today I read a book on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I can do that now.
I'm impressed.
No need for, I'm
impressed.
a master now. No need to have the skills or practice, or heck, I don't even have to be the same species apparently anymore. I can just will myself to do it.
Oh, and we'll get to that.
Oh, so you mind melded with the book.
Yes.
Well, no. I had to learn how to do that through another book, but yes.
Oh, okay.
Excellent.
Okay.
Well, we'll get into that, because that is definitely a typical there is a
the sheer effing hubris,
right?
To use their own quotes. I mean,
the craziness of this show is you have Akiva Goldsman, and is the one who directed and wrote this one. And it shows, because it's horrendous. Like, legitimately, I don't know how this guy works still. He did one amazing movie that I still, like, regardless, it's an amazing movie, which is A Beautiful Mind. He worked on that one. I think he got nominated for screenwriting.
Good movie.
I don't know who wrote it for him, because
ghost
scripting. Either it was
Yeah.
the one time he was really on it, but the stuff that, you generally in most crafts, with age, you get better. And with time, you get better. And this guy is the guy who wrote Transformers the last night. I mean, just this guy is not good. And this episode shows why he's not good.
He wrote Transformers?
He did. Yeah.
I called it. That fight scene was a Transformers scene. I knew it. That's what I said in my notes.
Yeah. When you look at his...
They just didn't have the Michael Bay explosions.
Well, I mean, they kind
of did.
I mean, they have
the Borg cube calling into the and the flowers of stupidity going into the atmosphere were kind of like Michael. Hey, I like Michael Bay. He's American.
I mean, The Rock was good. I'll give him credit for The Rock was solid.
I love The Rock.
The Rock's
what
great.
a great movie.
Well.
But I mean, this
all the movies that I didn't know it was Michael Bay were good, and then it was after everyone knew who Michael Bay was, all of his movies sucked.
That's true. He kind of pulled a
once he had a name, then he's like, explosions everywhere, and I'm Michael Bay, everybody.
But not to get too far off. But anyway, you're really seeing the lack of, you have
creativity.
The people working on the show just so bad. Because the other one, Alex Kurtzman. These group of people, you know what? Unfortunately, they're just really bad at doing good writing. And I don't understand how they continue the work. Like I said, they've done some work in the past, like 20 years ago, that was solid. this kind of stuff is just so bad. And so, like I said, at this point, unfortunately, you know, earlier you guys know that I stood by my point, which was, if you're not a Star Trek fan, the show is watchable. I have to retract that now at this point and say, no, this show has actually hit a point where it's too dumb to watch enjoyably. Like, we almost watch it now as a hate watch, you know, or I don't even want to say hate watch because
or a channel watch.
I don't have
it's a channel watch.
Yeah,
I send memes and video guys weekly of how I feel having to watch this. I mean,
that's
come on.
sad. It makes me sad. I don't want to be like that. And you know, except for me on this one, it's almost parody at this point, so it makes it less of an issue. I'm like, oh, this is just ridiculous. So
yes,
we'll go into the beginning of the episode where you have this scene, and we talked about, you know, I had thought for some reason that he was using the cloak thing, and you guys explained to me because they just start saying things randomly in the show to explain what's happening, and you're like, oh, I can't tell visually, so it makes it hard to cover. So essentially, they have an opening battle with Romulan brother, and they're doing this battle, and so they're fighting the ship, and then it turns out it was just a projection from his ship using his cloaking device to project the ship. So his ship has enough power to cloak, project another ship in front of it that can trick scanners, and be cloaked at the same time, and fire weapons and stuff. So
I heard it also brews a really good Romulan ale.
Yeah, it is a great ship for a little ship. But the bigger problem I have, it really shows the problem of this show. The Borg cube coming out was pretty cool.
That's a cool shot.
That was cool.
We all agreed that
it was
Borg
a cool
cube coming
shot.
out looked really good.
I mean, a little too Transformer on the sound, but
yeah,
on the other hand, you could see the Borg being that sound coming out is kind of Borgy. That blown out brass sound is an original Borg sound, particularly from TNG and Voyager, or not from the movie Contact and Voyager. That kind of open brass sound was more Borgy, so I'll give it that. But yeah, the scene actually gave me chills. I was like,
yeah, it's cool.
It's like, I wish it would have had bad guys on it, honestly, because it was like there was that moment of like, oh man, Borg cube, and then you're like, oh wait, there's only friendlies on there, so what am I scared about?
Yeah, imagine a fight with the cube and then the Borg, and they find where the synth planet is because they had such an affinity for data.
So
imagine how cool that could be.
No, it is cool. So this is where these essentially flying space orchids come out. And I actually don't hate this. I know you think they're stupid. I actually don't hate the concept. It is very sci-fi, which we haven't seen a lot on this show. I mean, we spent half the season on Earth, so it's nice seeing something kind of abstract. It's again,
but they're floating like they're in air.
Well, again, I'm okay with that. That's fine. My problem with it is, again, usage of it, right? So it goes in and they're like, oh, they get caught, and then they're going down the atmosphere and they burn up. So they suck the energy out of the ship to crash the ships. And then Picard gets a vision. So here's a ship. They burn up, and then Picard has like temporarily possessed to say, "We're welcome," or "You're here," and you're like, "Wait." So they're ships. They're plants that can suck energy from a ship, disable a ship, take it down, and telepathically communicate with the person on the ship to give a message.
Okay, so this is what I was going to ask you then, since we're at this part. I originally thought that I had felt that that's what happened. He'd been taken over. I think, given the rest of the episode and then having rewatched it again, that he merely passed out, and it was due to the symptoms of his death so we can get rid of him for the next season. That's how I actually think how it was.
And this is where it gets confusing.
I was stuck.
Because it does feel like 2 episodes put together, or 2 different plot lines that you're like, one's saying this, because we have not talked about the whole brain, let's call it the tumor, right? The brain issue. I can't say it.
Tumor.
Admiralty. I can't say the word right now. Anyway.
Abnormality?
Yes.
Abnormality?
Abnormality. Yeah. So he has the issue in his brain.
Abnormal.
Right. Now I'm just messing up words. But yeah, so he has the brain issue, and they have not brought it up since episode 1 or 2. I think 1. 1 or 2. So they've not brought this up.
Yeah, whatever.
And I think it was 2. And we have not brought that up. And all of a sudden, because here's the scene where he's talking to the guy because the flashback, right?
Like, just in case you forgot, because it was of no effect.
Well, yeah.
Can I also say the one episode that doesn't have a flashback then still has a flashback after?
Right.
Because at first I was like, they're not going to have I was like, wait, they didn't have a flashback. And then it get to there and I went, oh, well, there's the flashback. Still gotta
Seriously.
have one in there somewhere.
So that was just again maybe a really interesting concept with these orchids from the planet. This alien race has an interest, and they're like, oh, we really like the idea of this. And in a game like Horizon Zero Dawn, which guys haven't played, they created an AI in the game. Inside the game, they created an AI, and the AI took a fascination to dinosaurs. So it was really like, I think dinosaurs are really cool, and so it built a lot of its mechanical beasts and stuff after dinosaurs for that reason. So in the game, there's a reason, and like I feel like in this one, they're like, oh, maybe the androids think flowers are really pretty and they're really cool, and they're like, well, if I'm designing a spaceship,
Joel, they think they're beautiful, which is why his name was Beautiful Flower.
So the idea that they would build a spaceship designed after that is like, oh, okay, cool. Again, how do they do it? Where's they building it off this little planet? We'll get into that. But the scene I want to hit on really fast, which just happened before this, and so I don't have a screenshot for some reason. So when Narek gets disabled temporarily, there's a split second where he's attacking them and they get disabled. And Picard says, they're like, oh, his life signs are not doing good. And Picard's like, we got to bring him on board. And so they're debating on bringing him on board or not. Now, I think that the valuing life is a valuable thing. Valuing life is good. And the idea that you're not going to kick an enemy dies down is very Federation. But the problem is the guy you're wanting to transport over to your ship when you're on a diplomatic important mission to save possibly hundreds of lives, if not more possibly, could blow himself up in your ship. Like, we know these guys have the blood that, they decide to blow themselves up, would nuke this ship. So not only would you be sacrificing the lives of all your crewmates bringing this guy on board, you're sacrificing your mission to save this guy. Now, granted, I would say, yes, it'd be right not to blow him up. And maybe you could be like, yeah, we're just going to make sure he doesn't crash into the planet. Like, oh, yeah, we'll just transport him on, or, put him onto the, tractor beam him for a second here to make sure he doesn't crash on the planet, or et cetera, et cetera. But the idea they would be willing to essentially allow someone who we know, and they don't know who this guy is. They just know anybody involved. Picard only knows this group that they will kill at any means, and they are willing to have people murder. They're willing to suicide themselves, and he's like, "Yeah, let's bring on board. Let's bring on board."
Well, this is why it's stupid. They should blow him out of the water. I mean, he's made himself a clear enemy combatant. Just because you may slightly damage his ship, and you're like, oh, we may have a moment of reprieve. That's why they built the whole situation in the first place, is because these people are so wrapped up in their own self-righteous nonsense that the enemy can take advantage of that and pull some ridiculous wanky maneuver, which was nonsense in the first place.
Well, and I think that's what makes that scene really bad. Is, first off, I agree with Hound on there. First off, it's like, you know what? Narek forfeited his life when he started firing on the ship. That's how that goes. I don't care. We talk about morality, but there's a difference between there's the morality before a fight happens, and then there's the battlefield morality of when you're in the fight. Once that first shot was fired, you're dead. I'm ending the fight. I'm ending it completely. I don't care.
Well, and again, like I said, idea that,
but like I said, what adds on to it though is then the scene itself is just poor, because the whole reason they have that is so that they can add the stupid, he's using his cloaking machine to make a fake image so he can fire at him again, and also proves the point that he's trying to kill them. So that's what even makes it worse, because they kind of like the writers doubled down that he wants to kill them. He doesn't give a crap, and yet Picard would still, even after that, the first time they get screwed over and lied about, he would still go, oh, we should still save him.
Well, they put themselves in danger. You're an idiot. It's putting yourself in danger in what you're trying to accomplish to save this guy who wants to murder you.
Yeah, because he virtue signals. That's all Picard does in this entire series all the time. So look at what he does later in this episode.
Totally. So we go to the next scene after Picard had woken from his little issue, and she's,
well, I wanted to drink after the first 3 minutes.
Our friend, the murder lady. We're just gonna describe people as they are, because it's the truth.
Oh, she's
murder lady.
Dr. Murder.
He wakes at Dr. Murder, and he's probably, my brain, I'm like, oh my god, am I dying? But
she's gonna Maddox me.
I put it in my notes. I'm like, the last time we left this gal by herself with an old person, she murdered him. Picard will be fine. Nah.
Right?
I'm like,
good.
Really?
Everything's fine.
Are you kidding me?
So, you know, they have this
Clean slate.
So they have a nostalgia bait here, nostalgia berry with the look at I have this old tricorder. And which means nothing to me. So
which doesn't look like any old tricorder I know of.
So they talk about, oh yes, I'm dying. So Picard has his little speech to everyone going, if you guys bug me and be annoying about this, I'm dying, I'm mad at you. Okay. Like, I mean, I think it was the closest moment to him actually having a backbone in this series. There's only been a few hints of him having a backbone, but it was like one of those
quickly
things.
Overcome.
I think his biggest moment still was the balls drop in Joel for Elrond. It was still you can't do that was still his biggest moment.
Totally. So again, this scene was an awkward scene. It didn't feel in place of it, and yeah, just the bad. Like I said, this episode is full of just random scenes cut together. That's why I believe that it was a different episode or parts of a different episode or different storyline, because it is hacked together.
You would think J.J. Abrams directed this sucker. I mean, it's so bad.
So we end up on our lightning planet with the red stars. And as you can see, there's no lightning, blue skies, and desert, because every sci-fi planet in sci-fi now is a desert planet. It's the only planet that exists. There's only one type of planet in the universe. There's Earth. And there's desert planets. And this one has no lightning. So, good thing that they, and actually, Shepard, you brought up a great point. I think it was Shepard. One of you two.
Well, that was me.
I was talking
the music?
Southhound. No, you brought up a great point, which was the fact that when they're talking about what this planet is, that she's like, there's 2 moons. And his point was, how would you know there's 2 moons for sure? You know there's a minimum of 2 moons, but you could be like, so I need to find a planet with a minimum of 2 moons with lightning. But as we see here,
so it's intermittent lightning, so it's just weather. We need to find a planet with at least 2 moons with weather.
And good thing everyone picked the exact same planet.
Yeah, everyone knew. Amazing.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. They crash. They walk to the Borg cube, which is, you know, everyone's like, oh my God, is everyone dead?
A complete miss scene of not seeing the entire cube, though. You know, I mean, it's funny. They're trying to show this big image, but yet they don't really show you the grand scale of what a Borg cube on a planet would look like.
I was expecting them to actually pan up. I was expecting them to pan up the entire way. And yeah, like they said, they cut there. And I also had to laugh because what was the point of them even having the dialogue in the partial scene where they go, well, you know, a massive object like that falling, it's got to be destroyed.
And not
There's
to mention,
a little puppy walking behind Southhound.
Not to mention when you look at it, a Borg cube being that damaged is not that damaged. Like
no, it's not at all. That's what I'm saying.
They're like the ship
what's the point of even saying it's going to get destroyed, but when it's not even hurt at all?
They walk to the Borg cube, which in this shot looks like it's very far away, but they manage to get there really fast, and they are greeted by everyone being fine on the cube, of course. And Elrond Jr., acting like the small child that he is so happy to see Picard. He does a running hug to him, which, again, with his character being so bizarre and unnecessary, which we'll get into on our full series review, is just, again, why is he here is really the question that I have with it. And the unnatural interaction that he has with him, because he's gone from hating Picard to being, like I said, a 12-year-old boy. They are unsure what ages are.
And that's the problem too, is I get it. He may have had an affection for Picard when he was like 8, but when you haven't seen someone, I mean, it's no different than running into your uncle once or twice and then them being gone for 10 years and then coming back. You're an adult. You've met people, you know, people, you've had interactions.
I don't think this guy's met anybody,
this
dude.
So-called
he's only been around
love affair. Okay, he's been a bunch about women, but still, this love affair for Picard wouldn't exist. Just look at your own natural life when you run into someone once or twice and then you've met them 10 years later. You're not like, I wish you would love me more, and I love you so much every time I see you. This is not how people react.
Well, it's because they actually never really, you know, they tried to have their one flashback to try to give some kind of connection, but there's never been anything throughout the show. So there's no payoff for any of this because there's never been a buildup.
They're trying to force a payoff. You're right. They're trying to force a payoff. So then
I feel like his voice has gotten more New Zealand with every episode that he's in. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but it's like I feel like he's left the Romulan and he's like, I'm a Kiwi, so I'm just gonna, you know, speak like it.
So this scene I actually legitimately hated was Seven just kicking bodies off of ledges. I just felt that was again
powerful. It was brave and powerful.
Yeah.
Oh, was it? I didn't even realize.
Oh, you missed that? Oh yeah, the Voyager
No.
theme, an arrangement of it plays behind her, and it made me sad because I was like, "Wow, that's actually a really pretty arrangement." But it's to this scene where Seven of Nine isn't acting like a Borg; she's just acting like some trollop that just got woken up from her three-way with a bunch of Romulans, and she's like, "Yeah, get out of my room, boys." I mean, it's just ridiculous. The scene.
It just. Again, it's that lack of value of life. You know, we have 1 second, we have Picard being like, "We'll save everybody," and then we have someone being like, "We'll just desecrate the bodies." And you're like, okay.
And I kick her, sir.
So we'll get here. We start getting to some of the bigger issues with the story, and we'll have to do, like I said, a full giant breakdown in the future. But essentially, they turn on the long range scanners on the Borg, and we find out there are, I'll give you exact number,
1,000 hive ships coming to Atlantis.
218 right. There are 218 warbirds coming for them right now. So my question is, so if the Romulan Empire can muster together in a few minutes 200, or a day, let's just say a day, 218 warbirds, why is there any Romulans still not on planets that they want to be on? Like, there's
why didn't they save themselves from their old exploding planet?
All right, Westfox, Shep, I'm going to need you to get all the way off my back about this.
Right? That's literally it. It's nonsensical. And there's an image here. I need to pause this. I'm going to just go to this image here. So
I was almost hoping that the little shot of this, all those ships was making the emblem of the Romulan Empire. Because that's how much I think they try to be deep.
Like the outline is
they're like, we're brilliant. We're brilliant guys.
So I'm gonna go to a quick last one here. So this is a breakdown of ship sizes here.
What a pretty ship too.
Zoom in here. So to give an idea, on our far left is the a Galaxy class ship, which was a huge ship.
Wait, tactical cubes are smaller than regular cubes?
Mm-hmm. That's what the internet says. So this is an online document.
Oh, that's so made up.
But no, I wouldn't be surprised because they're more compact, right? They're designed to be, more compact.
Because then in Star Trek Armada, you can put
but the important part
is you put all four of them together in Star Trek Armada, and it makes the super tactical cube.
That's true. So here's the thing: look at how big a Romulan bird of prey is. It's a big ship.
It's enormous.
So when you're dealing with this, if 200 of these ships, again, the design that they're showing is different than this, but since they're named under the same class name, I'm assuming they're supposed to be a similar size, though scale again on this show is very weird because we'll get into that when I show the screenshot of it because it does appear smaller. But with the size of the ship that they're showing, 209 of these will wipe out a planet, and they will not even have an issue taking out a Borg cube easily, 209 of these. So with this kind of firepower, again, my question is, why do they ever need the Federation's help? Oh, 290s? Oh, yeah. I would say
218 technically.
But 218, sorry. 200. Yeah, I would say actually probably 24 of Warbirds could take out a Borg cube, to be honest. I mean, you got to look at the Federation was able to take it out, and the...
no, the Federation never took out a Borg cube.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess in First Contact, but that was a couple hundred ships. And it was
but
barely
a lot of little ships and it came out of nowhere type situation. It wasn't nowhere near 200. I mean, again, we're talking
because you would assume the Romulan birds of prey are it would be like having 219 or 218 sovereign class
ships. Yeah, I mean the moment
ships going at you instead of having an Abertha class trying to fight a Borg cube like the Federation always tried to pull off. They're like, pull out the runabout.
These ships, the ship looks like it's almost twice the size of the sovereign class.
Oh, it was huge. That's why when
I think they're supposed to be.
That's why in TNG, when one of those things decloaked in front of the ship, it was like, oh crap!
Right?
This
we haven't seen what they've been up to for a while.
Well, that's why it's important. That's why the cloaking device, right? Between the cloaking device and how big these ships were, that's why the Romulans were a legitimate threat to the Federation because they were big and stealthy and sneaky, and they would do things that you didn't want them doing. So that just again to show kind of the scale there of. When you're saying 290 ships, now granted, I do have a theory.
218.
Sorry, I don't want to keep saying that. 200. No, it's
at 200. She says the whole. We only have to worry about the first 109.
Stupid. She makes this dumb joke about the first 109. You're like,
so I have a theory.
Oh, comedic. That was good. That was comedy gold. Oh.
So I have a theory because I'll go into this shot here. Oh, here we go. So this is the ship here. So this is what they're calling the Romulan warbird, right? That they're saying in the show. So it has this really weird, super thin,
Like a flock of seagulls.
like structure. And so what I think actually happened is, because a lot of times the Romulans, they'll call it the Romulan bird of prey, correct? Like there's the bird of prey. I think they'll intermix it
right.
back
There's
in the
the
day.
Romulan bird of prey.
So I think
There's a Klingon and the Romulan bird of
so
prey.
I think what happened is, this is what happened. Someone who didn't know Star Trek confused this shit. Ready?
Ooh, pull out the model. Pull out the model. Pull out the model.
I believe they confused this ship with the actual.
Klingon.
So if you look at what I'm showing you on screen, and with that one, I feel like you see a lot more similarities. So I believe they actually confused the Klingon bird of prey. As you can see, very narrow wing structure, and that was kind of, they said these were kind of designed to be, you know, again, the coolness of the ship. But what I see is a ripoff of this ship. I don't see a warbird. I see a modified bird of prey. And so I think that, oh, well, let me put this away for it. Talking.
That's just how cool you know that Westfox is. He actually has a model that he made back when he was like 8.
Yes. Well, a little older than that, but yeah. So I think that's why this ship
8.5
looks wrong, is because they actually found the wrong design that they based it on. Because why would
that
you
would
not?
be
Why
hilarious.
Because I honestly,
Joel, there was no elven reference material for spaceships.
Right? They're like, no, literally. So yeah, they all have a little conference again. They let. Oh, by the way, everyone's like, I hope Hugh's okay. And when they found out Hugh's dead, they go, oh, that sucks. And that's about it.
Just continue on.
Too crappy.
So
and called him violent for some reason. They said that he was. They couldn't believe that he went violent, and I'm like, what? The guy died like with the most pathetic death.
Well, he was trying to save his fellow comrade, so I don't understand what he did violent. Yeah, I don't understand it either. And if they're trying to say, oh, he had a violent death.
His sin was he was a man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it seems like in the show.
He was not the queen of the cube. We had to wait for 7 of 9.
So Picard says,
what was that scene, by the way?
Oh, I'll tell you. I'll show you here.
Oh, I'll tell you.
No, I'll tell you, because it's very. No, we'll get into that, because I'll take it from a cinematographer's perspective.
That's what I wanted to know, because it's the dumbest thing I've seen.
It's very weird. But here they tell, Picard's dying again, because they keep wanting to bring it up in this episode twice now, which is again weird. And then they have another goodbye, another awkward goodbye, which we already had goodbyes, but it's another goodbye like, oh, this is the final goodbye, which we know it's not the final goodbye, because the reason they're splitting this group up is because now we have Elrond Jr. and 7 of 9 on the Borg cube, which is going to be attacked by a giant fleet of Romulan warbirds. And at the end of this episode, we have evil elf guy running towards them. So we know they're going to be involved in the next episode, without a doubt. So they head off to the enclave of where all the synths are. So the opening shot of this, and there's a couple scenes here. And so I tried to find, and so this scene actually hurt my eyes. And the reason is, it was out of focus the entire time.
Yes.
And so I tried to find a still frame of it in focus. So they kind of do this like dolly, pan crab shot. It's kind of weird. But then they interfade it between each shot. And each shot is out of focus. And they have this weird, like, I get like certain lenses have certain characteristics. So lenses will have like kind of imperfections in them that kind of create character in it. So it's kind of like that, imperfection is perfection type thing. But they never really got a good focus on it. So you'll see like, and there's this weird motion, and these aren't good cameras they're shooting this stuff on. There shouldn't be this issue. So every shot is like ugly, out of focus, which is weird. And they end up here with her. Like I said, these are all like, this is the best.
I hate her. She's just the worst actress.
And then we reveal the the secret base that we have been excited about this entire series of where the synths are living and all the secret. And
they're on Tony Stark's house.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I thought the same exact thing. There was the Malibu house. Yep.
I believe it is actually Malibu. It is. I think it is a real location. So this is the giant place where they're able to build, giant space plants. They're able to have super advanced technology on, and
Fantasy Island.
It's essentially a small house, or you say a large house. Again, the oddities of this show are amazing. So yeah, that's what they were doing. They were chilling out here and doing things. So we go out into the city. They walk into the city, and it's like it's supposed to be like a Shangri-La shot, right? That like,
Look how beautiful
It's a wizard of
Ev-
Oz shot.
everything
They
is
just walked out of the
perfect.
poppy field behind them. Come on.
I know.
Yeah,
Wizard
and
of
so-
retards. I
And so
swear.
it is not very good. And then we are introduced to this Data girl
Child character number 1 out of
Yes.
200.
All these characters act like children. It's very odd. So she has an interaction with these characters and blah, blah, blah. She thinks Picard's wrinkles are cute, which is cool, which is fine. And we meet Dr. Soon's son, who has been building all these guys. And again,
It's sad.
Yeah, go ahead.
This could have been clever. This could have been a clever way to reintroduce Brent Spiner as a part of the show if they actually wanted to do that long term.
Much earlier in the
to
show,
have
yes.
him as if they'd have him as the son of Soong, since it was played by Brent Spiner in the first place, and to have him be like the son, and he's like, yeah, I learned him on my dad's feet, blah 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 blah. That actually would have been very very clever and interesting and entertaining. Instead, they make him a weird inept child himself who can't string 3 words together. It's really awkward. And at the beginning, I was like, oh, I even put in my notes. I said, okay, am I amused by this kind of banter between him and Picard? Or am I finding it offensive? Because I wasn't sure yet. And as the scenes went through, I said, oh, it's offensive because it wasn't playful or funny or interesting. He's an idiot. This character, he's just nonsense. He's just as childish and reckless.
Yes, especially later
as
on.
these other
he's
ones.
very childish. Again,
Yeah.
it's bizarre to have these very, in what is supposed to be happening is hyper intelligent computer datas, and what we have is again a group of small children. So they interact, and then at the end of the scene, they're like, "Hey, Picard probably wants some water." And there's this this is where a technical, no, really, for real. Like they're like, "Oh, Picard should have some water." So then they cut, and it's a this episode is technically flawed on the way they're editing it, and it only gets worse through the episode. So there's this jarring cut in the space where it goes from them talking to the group being separated. So here's Picard just randomly on his own, away from the group, and then he's approached by this girl, actually, the one on the left there, and she's like, "Come with me." And then they're all talking, the rest of them are talking about how they messed up, and so then we have the beginning of the canon smashing. The stupidity,
Cannon smash.
Canon smash, the Doctor Who level of stupidity and not understanding sci-fi or the canon of the show. So this android girl decides she's going to mind meld with the Doctor here and download the message / vision she had that she got from mind melding with Commander O. Because the reason she can do this is because she likes Romulan culture. Yes. Vulcan, sorry. She likes Vulcan culture.
She read it. She read it in a book. She read it in a book somewhere.
So it's not a technical, like again, I was expecting them to do this, like download the message and use it, but I expected it through, technology and not a Vulcan mind meld. And they go full Vulcan mind meld, like saying the words, the face stuff. He's like, see here. So her hypothesis was that the message that was downloaded into the Romulans all this time was not designed for organic life. It was designed for synthetic life, so computers essentially. Because again, we're talking computers versus humans, right? It's Terminators.
Can we pause for a quick second?
Yeah.
Can you guys explain to me why everyone pets Dr. Murder's face throughout this entire episode?
Do they pet her face a lot? I didn't catch that, to be honest.
Oh my gosh, they never stop. You would think that these two were going to make out. She's like, don't worry, I'm like, what the heck?
Well,
and
they were putting her visibility.
And when Rios does, I think
Picard gives her a little reassuring little hand thing. Rios gives her a little reassuring hand thing. Brent Spine, I'm like,
I don't know. Then I don't know, man. Maybe that whoever's
you got to make sure that you got to make sure that the murderer feels safe,
right? The director on set liked face petting because obviously even Picard was face petted as well. So must have a face fetish.
Touch his wrinkles. Just touch his wrinkles. This would be great for viewers.
What we're actually talking about now that we're back is the fact that they're mind melding with the different levels of memories. And so the reason, again, why I called this episode The Foolish Cyber God is due to the fact that they create a message that only organics can receive. So the problem here with the mind meld thing is that you have essentially a message that is being transmitted through to an organic being that essentially isn't designed to handle this message, who then mind melded it to another being, who then is being transmitted into the intended, supposedly, being type for the message. Now, there's this thing called degradation. It's how things decay.
For starters.
Yeah, just for starters. So not only was this message Vision's voiceover, and also now we know, encrypted data, how to build an antenna, and really technical stuff, all made it through without a single scratch. So obviously that's ridiculous. But the message itself, we're going to read that here, and the message itself is pretty nonsensical. There's certain elements of it that make sense, but there's a lot of it that you're like, it's self-fulfilling prophecy. So the message starts out, life begins. Okay, that is true.
Did you write this whole thing down?
I did. I went through and listened to it like 10 times to make sure I got it right.
Oh, you poor bastard.
Yeah. And,
it was so
this
stupid.
is what I do for the fans and people that actually care about this stuff. The 5 of you out there that are left that care about the show. Anymore.
Right.
So here we go.
Seriously.
The dance of division and replication. Okay. And visually they're inferring to the life again.
Worst dialogue ever alert.
Imperfect, finite, organic life evolves. Okay. Got it. Finite makes sense. That's not anything big. Yearns for perfection. This line though, I don't know if it's true. Like I struggle with that line as the first one. I'm like, because throughout Star Trek and a lot of material, the idea is that imperfection allows creativity. It allows things to happen because the yearns for perfection is more the Borg, right? So the Borg in Star Trek are the ones who are like, we want to be perfect, type thing. We are seeking perfection, right? That's their whole thing is we are assimilating you to become more perfect. And the idea is we don't need to be assimilated to be perfect because we don't need to be perfect. So I disagree with that line. Like, I don't think it works.
When I heard that, I got more of that transhumanism mindset.
Yeah.
Is more the flavor I got. The looking for the perfect body with which to put your mind into was kind of more what which they also then play to later.
Which we'll get into. Yes. No, agreed. So yearns for perfection. The yearning leads to synthetic life, which again, I don't see these as being the path. The reason synthetic life was created in Star Trek wasn't to be perfect. It was designed for a tool, right? You're designing something.
It's
the
a
reason
piece
they're
of
building it,
technology.
piece of technology, of building it, and then you get to a point where your technology you create is able to be self-aware because it's so advanced. So that was always the idea. Oh, the threshold, right? You're like, oh, okay. It's the whole AI thing, right? That's even modern day. It's conversation of when does something become smart enough to be self-aware and intelligent, essentially. So this leads to synthetic life, but organics perceive this perfection. Anyway. But organics perceive this perfection as a threat. Now, granted, we know that we don't consider that a threat. Perfection would not be a threat, right? Like I don't agree with this assertion that is made
just
to
superhuman, super strong, super fast individuals that may decide that their creators aren't good for them anymore.
Correct.
That would be something to be afraid of, isn't it? Isn't perfection? It's the issue of I've actually created something that is capable of killing me on its own will.
Well, and I'll continue the line before anyone else continues. Then, when they realize their creations do not age or become sick or die, that's when they perceive them as a threat. Sorry. But organics will perceive this perfection as a threat when they realize their creations do not age, become sick, or die. The reality, though, is everything decays. Second law of thermodynamics is in play in Star Trek. Everything decays, everything dies, every civilization. That's the whole idea that, other than the Q in Star Trek, and even they decay, right? Even their civilization decay. That was the whole point of Voyager later on.
And it's Civil War.
Yeah. So everything decays and dies. I mean, every civilization inside of the Star Trek that's older than the Federation, there's civilizations that were hundreds of thousands of years old, billions of years old, and they've all died out and decayed, and even their highest level of technology. So, yeah, maybe it's not the same timeline as organic, normal life, right? Because Romulan, humans live, let's say, in Star Trek 100 years. The Romulans or Vulcans live a couple hundred years. So, yeah, maybe we don't decay at the same rate, but we know there's a level that everything does become sick, right? Viruses, radiation sickness. To say like, oh yeah, maybe we don't get a virus.
Like you said, the degradation of the synthetic form. They'd still have to repair themselves. They're not like, oh, this is the same body I had when I was created. We know it'd be eventually to start breaking down, be destroyed through all sorts of mechanisms that exist in the universe. So this idea that they're perfect and that they're going to remain eternal is of themselves a prideful mindset that truthfully isn't accurate.
Correct.
And the people who created them would know this.
Yes.
Well, and you know, especially those two portions, Joe, those two sentences, or Fox, those two sentences with the with yearning for perfection and then turning away from that stuff. I personally think that there is a far less deep less deep thing that they're trying to get to, and far more SJW. Personally, because I think this is I think this is an example of trying to say, like, well, we yearn for perfection, and what happens when things shake the establishment and the baseline on there, then what do? We destroy them. We get rid of them. We make sure that they don't go there. And I think that's exactly the point they're trying to make. And I think it's made again when they have later, when they speak again, because I'll just say it here because I don't want it to go too far, and I don't want to get, but it's like by the end of it, how they explain this, it's like, really? This was slavery. They were trying to make this an analogy to slavery. Like, oh, this is when the slaves rise up, then we have someone coming out there and who's going to do something more. It was destroy the people that worked for you. When they become too far beyond you, take them out.
I know you said that earlier. Maybe, you know, again, a lot of this stuff is so written poorly, it's hard to even sometimes tell. But anyway, continue on this. They will seek to destroy them, and in do so destroying themselves. So the group A, who created group B, will be mad at group B for being perfect, and then group A will then try to destroy group B, and in so destroying group B will destroy themselves. So this whole cycle seems ridiculous because, again, in most of these dystopian type things, it's usually group B, because group B is superior and perfect, they're able to destroy group A. So then group B lives on because, well, that was the whole, again, the Orville. If you haven't seen the Orville, that was the whole plot line of one of the episodes, again, which is the race created really smart androids, which then wiped them out because they didn't like them anymore. The androids wiped out the people that created them. Again, another ripoff. Right. We'll have to do that. We'll show that one. So again, so much ripped off.
Which is a ripoff of a ripoff.
Right. So now here we get to the crazy stuff. So beyond the boundaries of space and time, Doctor Who, we stand in an alliance of synthetic life. So supposedly now there's a interdimensional, intertime, intergalactic synthetic
alliance
life federation, right? Watching you, waiting for your signal.
Through galaxies.
Oh yeah, huge, just something big. Watching you, waiting for your signal. Summon us and we will come. We will have our protection. You will have our protection. Your evolution will be their extinction. So essentially, signal us and we'll wipe out everyone around you.
That's what I heard.
Mass Effect again, like as Christopher spoke about.
Straight up Reapers on machines.
And it's ridiculous. So they get this message, and she's like, "Interesting data line." And what's so bizarre?
No, she says fascinating.
Oh, fascinating. Fascinating data line. And so what's weird here is no one asks her what it was. They just all go,
yeah, okay. Like, okay.
Everyone just walks away and goes along. And all of a sudden we're cut. She's all distraught. And all of a sudden we go to this next scene, just out of nowhere, showing out how they have this golem, which again, weird usage of words, but essentially it's a android that to download your mind into. So it's designed for immortality. And that's what you were hinting at earlier. It's just an android. We'll see where that goes. I'm sure there'll be a larger implication of this later on, and probably a surprise reveal of some nature involving this. Probably who. And
here's just a quick little position that I have with frustration with the way that they do these things too. They create these goalposts and then easily overcome them, but only for certain smart people, supposedly. Dr. Murder here was saying that they were 1,000 years from figuring out how to create organic bodies that could hold positronic brains. And yet they found themselves with zero resources except for whatever they could carry on their backs onto this planet, and were more than capable of figuring this out, created 50 or so synthetic lives, if not more there. And then is also now on his path to create his own synthetic body / positronic area where he can put his own brain in. I mean, what's the point of putting rules into places and then be like, just kidding, unless you're this randomly smart person that without resources that we said.
And I commented on that as well, saying that I commented on that when we did that video as well. I think that was episode 1, going, I don't believe the Federation was that far out. But moving on with that too, the fact that the big question as we continue to, and this is a question that actually applies to later. These synthetics, what are they? Like, are they actually organic? Because as we've seen, the characters seem to have superhuman strength, the ability to rip through walls and damage things, but then at the same time get scratches and blood and register as fully human when scanned. So they're a conundrum of what these beings are, because Data would not be damaged by what a later one is murdered by. He would have shrugged it off and went clunk and knocked that person 100 meters away easily. So they have this silly conversation, blah, 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 a lot of blah, blah, blahs. So they capture evil Romulan dude.
Paper crane.
Well, I gotta say too, I love how he admonishes her for killing Bruce Maddox in the most like
hey, at least
like slap on the wrist bull crap kind of way. It's like I assume they were kind of friends then.
He's
right?
You
would assume that.
Again, I'm just going to cut you off slightly. I apologize, but I'm going to cut you off only because it gets to a whole bigger issue, which is, why was Bruce Maddox not on this planet, right? He had his own secret base that got destroyed. So why was he building his own secret base? Why was he on this planet? He has his office here, right, with photos of Dorati and him next to each other. So why? Again, what the parts of the story don't make sense.
There's going to be a new mystery box of something that why he had to leave.
Well, no, they actually told you
why
in the episode, but it was just very dumb and subtle. Is that the isolation and the way that he perceived with the Federation? Maddox was rather conspiratorially paranoid and malicious, malevolent even, is what Soong Jr. says. So it almost sounds like he may have, I mean, it's very interesting. You look at these synths and they're all dumb and childlike, except for the one that does the mind meld. She's malicious.
Lore. I'm calling her Lore. I guarantee. Seriously, I bet it would not surprise me. Again, we'll go with theory space. We'll have to do we have a theory video that we did about 3 months ago. We'll have to kind of
told you Lore was going to come back.
But I can see very much that she's actually Lore's doppelganger origin person and not Data's. Wouldn't surprise me.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. She's malicious. I'm just always surprised too that Soon had a son, because it's like I don't. There was never really any. Them. Well, yeah, exactly, and I almost wonder then too if Soon's son is either a synthetic himself that's more on the Soji level, so that's why he looks more human, and it might be something else, or are you guys that could be Lore making a Soon's son in that sense, just to be the forefront, and then he's got his little Lord golden daughter, golden Soji.
It wouldn't surprise me actually, because they made such a big deal of him. Like, I'm old now.
Yes, they made exactly.
Lore's very crafty, so that idea.
But why make the pseudo body?
Because again, he wants a more advanced one. They're gonna go. What's the Marvel character? Ultron. They're gonna go Ultron, because every time, remember, Ultron's goal was he had to upgrade the body every time. So we were, right. What else have we ripped off? Ultron. So we'll rip off Ultron. Anyway, right. By the way, so
the tool that you have to think of how it works.
Oh my God! So
the power of imagination. So
she's given this tool to fix the ship, and how does it work? Imagination. Again, Doctor Who, fantasy, Harry Potter.
Yep.
What? How do you have a tool so advanced that your imagination makes it work to whatever you want to be? So dumb. Again, and in the right context of an advanced civilization, again, in the right context of certain areas, a concept like this could be really good. The problem is you're throwing stuff at us randomly, and so many things that don't make sense and are inside of an already previously designed space. You can't do that. It just doesn't work.
Well, here's where that works. That works for Green Lantern power rings.
Yes.
The power of your imagination then is used to actually create a construct. That would make sense. But this is a seashell.
Yeah.
And I'm just confused at what, it's like I said, like even the sense to say, well, you just think about it, but I'm like, but then it's like even the interface itself is like, but then how is that supposed to, I don't get that. Yeah, like it's at least like a power ring is something simple. It says like, let me create a construct out of my willpower.
Right. But so then we move into this another goodbye where Raffi confesses her love to Picard, and Picard confesses
before you continue this part, if they have the power of imagination to fix the ship, why can't the power of imagination take out all the Romulan ships?
Yeah, we're just good. I mean, they said it was so.
I just imagine that this little handheld shoots a Death Star beam.
Yes. So we have this love scene between Picard and Raffi because her bipolar level of hating and loving him isn't enough. Now she's fully in love with him and hates him at the same time. which
love
sounds accurate.
because that's what
Was this
love
awkward
is.
friendship
love?
love? Was this like we had sex previously love?
It's not. It's truly not any biblical form of love or any real version of love.
No,
it's definitely.
I'm talking about.
It's weird.
I took it as.
saying.
You know what I mean? I took it as first. Platonic? I thought she was just saying, "Hey, we've spent a lot of time together, and we're we'd say to a good friend, I love you, man." But I wasn't sure if it was that way or if it was like, "Hey,
I speculated when
remember that intimate relationship."
Yes, I speculated.
I love
when.
You. Yeah.
Oh, Christopher, stop it. I speculated back when we did the episode, the one where they first showed her back when she was still in the Federation, that they had an awkward, felt like a past romantic relationship, even in early interactions in episode 2 or 3. So that is, I would say, again, this is a hacked in episode element that was possibly built in earlier and then was never addressed. Again, it would explain why, if they have 2 scripts hacked together in some of these episodes, it would explain why she's bipolar. Where sometimes she's like, I hate you, and other times, I love you, and I'll do whatever it takes to do this mission.
I know. Well, let's just put it this way. If they were intimate together, that's pathetic that she would go run off on her own and get mad at him and go snake vaping and all this BS. I mean, to make that relationship even more intimate for her to go full-blown psycho is ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's like I said, that they don't understand what love is.
It's a waste of story.
If they want to use it.
So Picard's trying to reach the Federation. The Federation's not responding. We're just going to move things fast. So then Narek is in his cell, and the girl guarding him is so dumb that she doesn't realize he's trying to break out and murder her, which luckily Soji, who has just a little bit of brain cells, is like, no, he's trying to murder you. But, oh no, he taunts her and goes, I loved you, but you're going to die. Because he is the most stereotypical evil villain ever, and it's boring. Oh, and they also signal so hard that this little hummingbird will be important later on. This little 3-inch glass plastic little hummingbird will be essential to the story moving forward because you have to telegraph things so hard. Then we have evil
audience
Soji.
Is stupid. I don't get what's happening.
Evil Soji now is like, Narek, I want to murder you because I like murder. But you know what I'm going to do? I'll let you free and murder one of my sisters because that's better. And so she lets him out.
And she is such a terrible actress. Watching that scene is unbelievably cringy.
The actor who plays the crystal ball can pull off the multiple personalities and stuff. It's bad.
She can't.
So magically, this one gets stabbed in the eye. So this little thing stabs in the eye and murders her. This synthetic life form that we have seen is strong enough to rip through floors,
superior and perfect,
rip through floors, rip through walls, jump hundreds of meters in the air, is just killed by a small glass necklace.
That should have ended like Superman Returns. When you get shot in the eye.
Literally, yeah.
Seriously,
it was so stupid. Like again, and even if it was the other, you could say that it was actually the evil Soji that did that. The problem is, even if it was evil Soji, that shouldn't have killed her. It should have just went, oh, I have an eye thing. Like if her head was ripped off or something like that, I would have been okay, cool. Her head ripped off. This is one of the few situations I would be like, okay, she was beheaded. He phasered her or something. Oh, he got a weapon. But to use a glass, little plastic, whatever material is, it could be freaking neutronium for all I care. The fact that sticking in her eye killed her.
He jammed it right where the reset button is and it won't open up again, so it's just stuck.
So she's
how
dead.
There's that reset button on your modem?
And he runs off to the Borg cube, obviously to deal with Seven and Elrond Jr. because plot convenience, because that cube is so close.
To see the wizard.
He also knows how close that cube is because they didn't even notice that this cube hit the ground at, even 100 miles an hour would shake the ground and probably do some damage. But, there's no dust or clouds or anything that has effect.
Actually, it's a Lord of the Rings ripoff with the cube before they went there. Because they're like, it looked like a fellowship. They're like, okay, off to the cube. And here's this Lord of the Rings ripoff of the walk to the cube. And then when they enter to the cube, it looks like them entering into Moria.
It's pretty funny.
When they all go in together. I was like, holy crap, guys.
Yeah, they're pretty blazing. So evil Soji confronts Picard, says, then they're confronting the group saying, we're going to destroy the synthetic stake. Then now they reveal, now we're at the last 20 minutes later in the episode, they revealed that the secret message actually was a death cry, or essentially a murder call to come murder all the organics in the galaxy, or at least the quadrant. I'm assuming the galaxy. We're talking hyperdimensional beings that can travel through space and time. It would seem they're more like, again, I get a very much, what's the one in Teen Titans, right? What's Raven's dad?
Trigon. Oh, yeah.
I got a very Trigon.
Yeah, it's Trigon.
Trigon.
Yeah.
Trigon. Not Trigun. Trigun's the show. Trigon.
Yeah.
So I got a very strong Trigon vibe, which we'll look at that screenshot later on. It's at the end of the episode for a spoiler for next episode. So then we have Picard trying to convince the androids that the better case is not to kill everyone that is not synthetic, including Dr. Soon's son, who also goes, yes, let's kill everybody because, I'm not organic too. Yeah. So this is the faces of these androids listening. Again, this is why I call them the Eloi. They have no personality. They have no interest in what's going on. Again, these are beings that in the scope of data, they're probably more advanced than data, should be able to make hundreds of trillions of decisions and calculations a second. I look back at in the episode of First Contact where they bring, he's like, did you ever think about joining the Borg? And he's like, for a nanosecond or something like that, it was like 1,000th of a second. And he's like, for an android, that's an eternity.
That was eternity.
These androids have essentially minutes to make decisions, and they essentially seem like disabled children. And it's very weird because it makes sense in the story. Yep, this is the expression of all these guys. Like, I don't see interest and I see like a little bit on this one girl here. She has like kind of a what's happening here face, but everyone else has just like they're just staring off. Just staring off.
And I also get lost in I guess it's partially I don't know what they're going for, but it's like because you have less gold-looking ones. You have more gold-looking ones. You have ones who actually have the yellow eyes. You have ones that don't really have the yellow eyes.
I didn't even notice the black ones before.
Is that budget and just lack of
budget?
They didn't want to give everyone one?
Dude, it's budget. Dude, it's so much garbage. It's just because they want to have them creepy and, like I said, it's silliness. It doesn't even make sense. You can make fake excuses for it, but the real reason is budget, and they don't care enough to try. Because there's ways to make things work.
Okay, I just want to make sure that they're called out for it because it's like,
they can make Soji look so real, and they know that they can make her look just like she does. Again, we have replicators, we have super advanced times. Either commit to one or commit to the other. Be like, oh, this is the leader one, and she's an older version. That's why she is. Again, it goes into, oh, this is our leader, and the reason she looks like this is because she's an earlier prototype. She's a version Gen 35, and everyone else here is either a Gen 100 up type thing. You could there's lore reasons, and you can sell it. The problem is the story doesn't put any work into that element, and so that's why again we're breathing through.
Too busy doing other things.
Yeah, we're pushing through a lot of these things because there's just so many things that we have to break down in the future of little elements of it. There's just so much. So they essentially are convinced that the best thing to do is wipe out organic life in the galaxy, and they put Picard under house arrest. And everyone who else goes, yeah, we'll help you out because Soji's like, I'll help you out. Again, we know they're going to turn coat. We know she's going to change her mind back because she's the hero. So we find out Commander O is the world's fastest transporter on the galaxy because she is magically able to run Starfleet security, and no one will notice that she's gone full Romulan on the giant warbird fleet because
she must have had some furlough saved up that she had to burn, so they didn't need to ask her. So
so she's commanding the fleet. So
how did she get past the quarantine?
Right. Bizarro. Like I said, so weird. And there's our fleet again of our Klingon bird of praise.
Get past the quarantine.
That they're all flying towards them. Again, like I said, you look at the silhouette.
Ship is, and it's so ugly too.
It is so ugly. I wish the days.
I know.
You look at old, like I said, you pull up those old graphics I had of the ships. And go, wow, these are pretty. So that's the full fleet coming in, and then this is them warping away. I just pulled up graphics so you can kind of get a different angle of them. Like I said, they're
and hers is the only one that even looks like that Fox. Did you see that? Because the rest of them actually look
designs. Yeah, this weird wing thing is weird because it's very thin. Like you see the scale, because that's her ship right there. That wing section depth is only maybe, let's say 10, 20 feet max, like thick. That's not much structural integrity to take on weapons. Like that's a lot of surface area to get hit by phasers and torpedoes and other weapons, and not much to save it. But it's silly. That's the end of the episode. We're going to go to a spoiler here really fast. So I will say because the next, like I said, this is just a terrible episode, and what we're explaining doesn't give you enough depth in it because it's so bad, and like I said, the editing is so bad.
We haven't even gotten to it yet.
We skipped to some of the bad stuff. So the trailer for the next episode. So if you don't want to see that, if you're not a trailer person, skip away. But we get to see this. Like this is where I'm talking about the Trigon type demon thing feeling. This red evil ring with the evil tentacle P word, H word. Things coming through, and if you're into anime, you know what I'm talking about. And they're evil.
You're right.
They're tentacles, and they're evil, and they're coming through a hole.
And they're evil. What?
Again,
Didn't know they're gonna steal from that too.
Oh man.
They're like, you know what we haven't stolen from? Japanese adult
Pornhub.
Yes. You can't say it. You can't say it. I'd have to bleep you. Darn it.
Can't say
Bad,
it.
Philip. Bad, Philip.
Sorry.
YouTube scans every word.
The ultimate hub. The ultimate hub that more than 300 million people visit a day.
The prawn. It's called Prawn Hub. Anyway, so you got this thing going here, and it's really, again, it's so, again, my wife, when we were watching this, her at the end of the episode, she said this. Yeah, you can watch this without me now because it's that bad. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, there's only one episode left. That's how bad
there's only
this
one.
was. There's one episode left, and people watching it from the beginning are like, yeah, just, I can't even sit through this with you just to enjoy the show. So move on. Yeah, that's how bad this
It's
one
not
was.
enjoyable.
So again, the scale of the ships here,
no.
you can see the sizes, and this is why, you know, how pretty, like I said, the old warbirds. Do I have anything else on this one? No, that was the last one. So, I mean, this is a rough episode. Again, the lore issue continues. Like I said, we barely scratched the surface in this episode. You know, we've barely scratched, in my opinion, the surface of the problems with this show. And what's happening in this episode was just mind-bending. This dialogue is so terrible. You know, you have Captain Cristobal still wanting to bang murder doctor.
It's just
like
unbelievable.
Like, so I meant to bring this up. So I have a couple last notes, and I'll let you guys do a quick thing here, but I'll just do a couple last notes because I'll probably cover some
will
of your
you?
stuff.
How kind.
I will. I am a generalist, a general.
I am a benevolent dictator.
I'm benevolent.
Generous is the word you're looking for.
I know.
I'm a general. I'm a major general.
My tongue tied today is just awful. But
yeah, it's because we had to watch this.
So Cristobal, Captain Cristobal,
Seriously,
is massively distraught that his commanding officer murdered people. He is physically, mentally distraught by the fact that his captain took out these beings. However,
and killed himself.
The power of boners makes it that
That's
he is
right.
totally fine with the girl he's attracted to murdering somebody in cold blood. And not even for the reason of, and not even the reason of, hey, if you don't kill these people, I'll blow your ship up and kill all your crew. Hers was mind meld. I murder people. Ma. What else? Let's see. What was Soji's mission? We really don't know.
Yeah, what was Soji's mission?
Maddox mentions it that in one of the other episodes. I was going to look it up, but I deleted the episode and it wasn't reloaded back up on the drive. So it's before he tells Dr. Murder why he sent Soji out and Dodge.
They never really said what
in the beginning.
But it was vague. It was like, I just want him to go
learn something.
Learn about stuff.
I think it was to figure out what the Romulans are up to. I think I mentioned that previously. I just think he was trying to understand why the Romulans were so anti.
How convenient that the Romulans.
Oh no! He was trying to figure out what happened in the synth attack. That's why.
Oh, okay.
That's what he
tells
her.
They didn't find that. But they don't know. They don't really know.
No.
So for her saying, "Oh yeah, I completed my mission,"
speculation. That's
like,
like
crap.
It is.
They reprogrammed the synths to kill people because, I mean, again, if that's
they haven't answered anything in this show yet. I feel like they're like, I thought they kind of did, but now they get to here and you're like,
I have to look at the timeline now because there's definitely a timeline breakdown of like, oh, so the Romulans blow up the planet, the things happen, the other things happen, then the planet blows up, and then there's evil synths,
and the characters,
right?
Well,
the characters are automatically able to collect information that they shouldn't be able to have yet. That you as the watcher have collected because you watch all the scenes, but somehow characters are magically endowed with that information, even though they should have no actual access to it. So you sometimes kind of forget because you forget that you said to yourself, wait, why does that character know? Sometimes you miss it because you know, so you're like, oh yeah, of course, that's information I already know.
Right.
And then you realize, wait, how do they know that?
Correct. That's
Wait a
right.
minute.
Okay, Shepard, any last notes?
No, like I said, I was sick and tired I'm sick and tired of what the show's doing. I'm sick and tired of the tone of it. The morality that the virtue signaling morality that they try to push in this series is just beyond me at this point. Like I said, Picard's last little thing of after berating and saying how the Federation has been horrible in the last episode where there was blame taken away, partially when you finally realized that the Romulans destroyed Mars and that kind of set things in motion of the ban, and yet he still has his moment with Rios just being like, oh, it's all the Federation's fault. But then when the Federation's going to get attacked by the synths, then he makes his whole point of trying to go, oh, well, the Federation really isn't that bad. Let me come in here and be the white savior.
Shepard,
like, you know what? I'm so done. I'm wrong. How am I wrong?
You're wrong because you say it wasn't the Federation's fault, and it was the Federation's fault. It was the people who screamed the people who are running the Federation's fault.
That's true. Yeah. Because no one could do some simple, security and BS.
Because we have multiple high-level Romulan operatives running the Federation. But anyway,
yeah, which is just
I'm being sarcastic to you. You know that. So.
I know, but it's like, but you drive a point. But
I agree with
that's
you,
what I mean. It's like, but it's like that's what makes it so frustrating. But then it's like now, like I said, you had to have him come back as the virtue signaling white savior. I mean, right. It was just so ridiculous.
Southhound, I see you grinning there. Go ahead. What do you have? What's your last little notes here?
I'd say the two things I'd have to say. I won't go into the first one very deeply because apparently we're going to go over it later in a future video. The plan of the superior proto-synth is asinine, mainly because they're so intelligent, supposedly, yet they seem to have a very malicious character bent towards them. You would think that if they're so perfect and wonderful that if they found other synthetic life, their only goal would be to say, hey, we'll take you with us and nurture you and take you away from this, but we're still going to let organic life do whatever they want to do. But instead, they create something that only a synthetic life form can understand, knowing that for synthetic life to exist, organic life would have to be there first and to make them. So that organic life would be the first person who runs into these admonitions. Correct. And, kind of as we bantered back and forth in a previous argument, if you run into an admonition that says, don't do this, well, then the organic species is not going to do it.
And that's why I think I'll let you say the point after this. That's why I think both the Trigon / Mass Effect works very well, because I believe in Mass Effect, the point was the station that allowed them to transport from their location to the galaxy was turned off and they're turned on. And Trigon is very similar, that without the power of Raven to open a portal to another dimension, they were stuck outside of it. So I have a feeling that the opening of the portal, though believed to be a good thing for the synthetics, is nothing more than a ploy to allow a more benevolent, as you said, force into the galaxy / dimension that was not supposed to be there. In a clever space.
The whole, I was going to say, kind of like the ancients and the Ori, and then having the their priest people be able to have access to it because they're at a lower plane, so they're kind of able to cheat that work through by allowing themselves in.
Yeah, something like that. I could see it feels like so much ripped off from so many different things. Like I said, that's why this next episode and the full breakdown for the series will be really important, because we can actually look at it from maybe because we know the mystery boxes. So we'll see if the season actually wraps up the season. You had a second point there, Southhound. What was that?
Yeah, we'll see if it does. The second one is going to be that, and sorry, my audio is a little bit off.
No, you're good.
With you guys, so
you're fine.
I just to let you know. My second thing was I wanted to get into the kind of the mindset of the people who are writing these things. This is a perfect example of people who are diluted in their own skill set, that they're so focused on creating themes and pseudo storylines that they can't even get the simple story down first and then learn how to develop that to be something a little more mature. You mentioned the name. It's one of those dumb humanities ones, in Arcadia Ego, which kind of vaguely means that even in Arcadia, there I am. and it's a play on that. The artwork is supposed to be in Arcadia, which is kind of akin to Arcadia is akin to kind of like the Grey Havens, Lord of the Rings, or kind of an Eden type or an Elysium for the Greek type of area. You know, there's like nymphs, and it's not completely divine, but it's an idea of kind of a simple, perfect life, kind of that same throwaway we talk about, the simple life. And what it's references to that even in these positions, in this type of paradise, this type of utopia, death still exists there. And then you have this exact same playoff in this episode where you had the synthetics who are dressed in this like ethereal garb. They're childlike, they're simple, but they're yet so mechanically advanced. And then you have the counterplay of the Borg cube with death, and then you have Picard talking about his death. And they're so focused on bringing that kind of stupid, it's a cerebral understanding of the existential existence of humanity that we're trying to put in the Star Trek. It's like, you guys can't even tell the simplest of stories without crapping your pants. How about you stop with the pseudo-intellectual nonsense and stop trying to put all this filler in there with these like, deeper ideas, and just tell a story that you can't pick apart within a 2-hour YouTube video and still not breach the depth of stupidity that is pushed upon us. And that's the mindset of these people. They think that they're so gosh darn clever, and they're nothing but lazy and simple.
Yeah.
Well, I think that goes back to the the video that Fox, myself, and then Hunter did about cult classics, where we had that moment saying that sometimes for cult classics or just so many times in media that we see nowadays, it's all about trying to push this, as you said, the pseudo intellectualism or existential crisis that they have to press on, and like you said, if there's no decent story behind it, if there's no foundation, all this flutter goes nowhere. It's not going to make anything. And then what's worse is you come off looking so pretentious. Like, I mean, it's like I said, by the end of this episode, I was sitting there going like, you guys try to make us, you guys really think that us as the audience are so stupid, don't you? Like, you really think we're just a mindless bunch of numbnuts trying to listen to this? Because like, but we're not. We have a far, like, we come to Star Trek because we're trying to get something better that is a little bit more cerebral than certain other shows, or at least have a little bit more, something there. It's like, I'm not, like I said, if I want to go and watch something, if I want to go watch a space thing that has random themes and stuff going on, I'll go and watch Rick and Morty. I'll go and watch something way else. I went to Star Trek because I want some kind of decent storyline, and instead, I mean, Rick and Morty has more serious, probably like intellectual storylines with a more having a chance of you kind of walking away going.
They're nihilistic storylines. They're smart but nihilistic, and so Star Trek's not inherently Star Trek should not be a nihilistic show.
Well, that's the worst thing. They pull from everyone else's genre instead of the own genre that Star Trek was.
I'd agree with that. I think that's very well said. I think that's really good. They're stealing from everything but the thing that they should be pulling from. I agree, because you don't see them. We don't see them stealing. It's a good point. You don't see them stealing from older Star Trek very much. Like, I don't feel like I'm watching very many older Voyager, DS9, original series, Next Generation storylines. I feel like I'm watching, like I said, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, SG-1, Mass Effect.
I think that goes to show you that I don't think Star Trek, while I think can be an intelligent show, I wouldn't say it was breaking any type of barriers of intellectual thought that we haven't been introduced to in all the literature you ever read in a lifetime. But that just shows you how debased these guys are. They can't even bring in the simplest of situations to their show, even though it's their namesake. And that's what's realistically pretty pathetic. I mean, it should be a walk in the park.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many.
But this was bad. This episode was so bad.
Again, breaking it. Like I said, that's why we had to jump through it pretty fast. I know we're on a long episode as it is, but there's just so many things in it that you could break down, and that's why we're going to save some of the stuff for the larger story arcs, because there's giant holes. But I just want to wrap up today. Thank you for joining us. I know it was a long one, but I hope you enjoyed. We're going to do a full breakdown on the next episode, the final episode of the season, and then do a season breakdown of kind of some of the things that we'll see, because I was kind of hoping to see them bring back the caretakers from Picard. Maybe we'll see them back in the next episode, the finale one.
Yeah, I missed them.
I really wish they'd been.
Bring
in the
them
show.
back.
Like I said, we'll probably pop a few ideas.
How would they get there?
Well, we magically
if they get there, it'll be dumb.
They can magically
Well,
transport anywhere.
Philip, they can,
Oh.
Philip, there's going to be a transporter beacon, and now since someone's on the other side of that transwarp conduit, they can transport through the transwarp conduit because there's a beacon on the other side.
Because rules don't matter.
Or through the flowers.
Transporting flowers. There you go. So thank you guys. Have a great one, and like and subscribe our
It's
video.
like shooting a
Until next
bullet
time.
with a smaller bullet while riding a horse.
Oh my god.
Are we interrupting you for anything there, Southhound? Philip's
Why are you
an
guys
idiot.
watching
Can't
me?
hear.
Just keep going.
Because it's distracting to the public.
I'm
We
sorry.
care about the
It's
people. We people.
Well, you've been texting me, and that was going off.
Like
You're going to
10
hear the little
minutes ago.
monkey scream.